CKS is an established think tank which is led by Lieutenant General Dr. D. Shekatkar as the chairman.
If a colonizer divides a state and country just by drawing some geometrical bound,
March 1971, that means anyone who came after that was not to be considered a member of the state.
Welcome to all of you to the day's program by Center for Knowledge Sovereignty. CKS is an established think tank which is led by Lieutenant General Dr. D. Shekatkar as the chairman and Lieutenant General VM Patil as the vice chairman with Shri Vineet Goenka as the secretary. It has been spreading awareness about data sovereignty and cyber security at strategic, political and national levels. CKS is a non-partisan nationalistic think tank which has been spreading intellectual contents with focus on the spheres of technology, public policy and research, strategic affairs and data sovereignty. We have been fortunate to host many speakers on this platform. CKS is honored and privileged to host on its platform the 4th season of webinars talk, Thus Spake Generals, wherein the strategic minds of the country will speak from our platform. Today in our inaugural talk, we are honored and privileged to have very highly decorated veteran, Lieutenant General Dr. Shokin Chauhan, PVSM, AVSM, YSM, SM, VSM, who in his 41 years of illustrious career, post-commissioning in Gorkha Rifles in 1979, has had extensive operational and counter-terrorist operations experience both in Kashmir and Northeast. The general had commanded Army's oldest strike corps, 1 corps, and prior to retirement in March 2018 was the DG of Assam Rifles. Post-retirement, he was appointed as the chairman of the Ceasefire Monitoring Group in August 2018. During this period, he reinvigorated the peace process and was able to bring all factions of Naga insurgent groups back into the peace process. Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan is an alumnus of DSSC, the Army War College, and NDC. He has served at apex level in both the MOD and the Ministry of Home Affairs. He was also the defense attaché in Nepal for 3.5 years and has led a large number of Indian military delegations to various international military forums. He was awarded a doctorate from Punjab University for his thesis, India-Nepal Strategic Relations in the 21st Century. The general is at present working on a comprehensive book on the strategic relations between India and Nepal. He was appointed as a visiting fellow of the Center for Land Warfare Studies in July 2021. He is a prolific writer, columnist, and acclaimed speaker on counter-terrorism and India's strategic neighborhood. The general is an executive council member of the Global Counter-Terrorism Council. Now I request Air Vice Marshal Pranay Sinha, BSM retired, and alumnus of Defence Services Staff College, Wellington, to take the program further. Viewers, AVM Pranay Sinha in his 35 years of distinguished career held many important appointments and post-retirement worked as an advisor to Bharat Electronics Limited for a period of 3 years and is presently a strategic advisor to IIT Mandi. He is an active member for our think tank. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, madam. For info of all, Madam Sumitra Goenka, she is Director Rating Infotech, CEO Triangle Global, and she is our strongest pillar of strength for CKS India. Good evening, viewers. Welcome to season 4 of our flagship webinar series inaugural session. But before I call upon the erudite speaker of the evening as moderator, let me contextualize the subject of the evening, turbulence in Northeast. No doubt, India's restive Northeast witnessed considerable decline in insurgency-related violence in last 8 years in the 8 northeastern states. And we have recently lifted the controversial AFSPA from some districts of Assam, Nagaland and Manipur, whereas it is also applicable in some parts of Arunachal Pradesh. Comparatively, Sikkim, Tripura, Meghalaya and Mizoram are peaceful. Exception is recent Assam-Mizoram border clash. Geographically, apart from Brahmaputra, Barak and Imphal Valley and some flat landscape in between here and there, 2/3 of Northeast region has hilly jungle terrain, and that has nurtured different clans and tribes with distinct culture, food habits, language and ethos. Geography shapes the destiny and the culture of the people of the region, and it has explained beautifully by Tim Marshall in his seminal work, Prisoners of Geography. It is geography that defines the state's country relationship with its neighbor. The accessibility to the region on the whole impacts the trade and commerce, sharing of its natural and mineral resources and food resources. Therefore, if a colonizer divides a state and country just by drawing some geometrical boundary lines without considering this cultural aspect, such demarcation is great injustice for the locals. The aftermath is then turbulence. Such insurgency spreads not only due to multi ethnicity of the region, but also due to isolation, deprivation, underdevelopment, unemployment, and other factors. And of course, benevolent neighbors like China loves to fish in such troubled water, utilizes Myanmar to support militancy. Pakistan's ISI uses Bangladesh and Nepal to foster radical philosophy and terrorism. Exception is Bhutan. But to understand and explain this complex conundrum of Northeast, where presently 9 insurgent groups have formed a new unified militant outfit, and NSCN Khaplang, group leader Khaplang is the chairman, Paresh Barua being of Ulfa being its commander-in-chief. Who better can explain all this phenomena, the uprising, the turbulence, better than the former DG of Assam Rifles, a counter-insurgency expert, scholar, soldier, Dr. General Shokin Chauhan. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, AVM Pranay. Indeed, it's an honor to be a part of the session, this inaugural session, and I feel very privileged for having been invited to speak here. What I'm going to speak to you about is something that is very, very close to my heart, because not just the fact that I was the Director General of the Assam Rifles, I have also served in the Northeast for almost 15 years of my service career, which started from a young major in Ukhrul way back in 1989 and continued my romance with the Northeast, finally going from Tawang to the Sela Pass, then as the G1 operations of 3 Corps, and finally had the privilege of being appointed the Director General of the Assam Rifles. At each point of my career, whether I was in active soldiering, actively carrying out operations, or finally directing counterinsurgency forces like the Assam Rifles, I was struck by 2 main issues: the beauty, the geographical beauty of the Northeast, and the wonderful, simple people of the Northeast. And I resolved subsequently, after retiring, I was asked by the Government of India to return to the Northeast and be the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group, which essentially monitors the ceasefire that we have with the various insurgent groups, some of which AVM Pranay has spoken about. It was a wonderful tenure, 2.5-year tenure, which I loved being and doing. And it brought me close to some of the insurgent leaders whom I was hunting 2 decades ago. So thank you very much, AVM Pranay, for having called me. Thank you very much for all of you for attending. Now, you spoke of geography, prisoners of geography that you talked about. There is another wonderful book called The Revenge of Geography, which I'm sure many of you would have read. I would recommend reading that and then re-looking at the Northeast, because not only is the Northeast a prisoner of geography, what's happening today is actually a revenge of geography. I have prepared a few slides which I thought we could share with each other, if only to make my presentation a little clearer. So I'll be speaking, as AVM Pranay spoke, on the turbulence of the Northeast. So let me just go straight ahead, because 25 minutes is really too short a time to cover such a vast subject like the Northeast. Firstly, what is the Northeast? Border security is a problem. Its predominant strategic location in South Asia. It has 15,000 kilometers of borders with 7 countries. and the internal security challenges are inextricably linked to these borders. And India's economic growth has actually generated a peculiar problem because India has been growing economically. India's neighbors have not been growing economically. And as a result, there is an illegal migration which has created great amount of problems within the Northeast by threatening to change the demography of this culturally fragile land. What we really need are, efficient customs, there's lack of border control, there's cross-border terrorism, illegal immigration, as I said, separatist movements, nexus of miscreants, lawyers, criminals with the lower rung of political leaders and officials. Regardless of the fact that the Assam Rifles is responsible for border management, the border simply can't be managed because it is almost 1760 kilometers long, and with the 46 odd battalions that Assam Rifles has, of which I could deploy only about 2022. Managing this huge border was extremely difficult. And of course, the government with its one border, one force made a single point person responsible for it. But it became difficult, mainly because of the lack of force. So let's just go to where the Northeast is actually, the Northeast of India, and what really comprises of the Northeast. To its head, the head of the Northeast is actually Arunachal Pradesh, the northernmost part of it, which straddles two parts divided by Assam. South of Arunachal Pradesh is the link state of Assam. Assam is also the most populous state. It's also the link state, and actually all these states, these seven sisters, were earlier a part of Assam. South of Assam, southeast of Assam is Nagaland, which is northeast of the country. South of Nagaland is Manipur. South of Manipur is Mizoram. You go further west, it's Tripura, and finally Meghalaya. A wonderful, beautiful land. 22.62 lakh square kilometers, 8% of the country's landmass. It's 8% of the country's landmass, but only 3.1% of India's population. And you'd be surprised to know that 40 million people from diverse origins, tribes, religions, and beliefs populate the Northeast. And to add to this rainbow are the 220 languages and dialects that are spoken in the North. So all in all, it's a huge management issue to communicate, to govern, to prevent crime. It is extremely difficult. There are some beautiful pictures of the Northeast, wonderful images, different colors. Okay, so let me just come straight to how the Northeast came about. While I was studying the issue about the Northeast, one thing was very clear, that the intrinsic people who inhabit the states of the Northeast have all migrated. All of them came from Bangladesh, they came from today's Bangladesh, they came from today's Myanmar or Burma, they came from Laos, they came from Thailand, they came from Vietnam. When you look at this movement of people, you actually realize how close the Northeast of India is to the Southeast Asian countries. Their languages, and I'm sure their DNA would have very close relationship with the people of Vietnam, of Laos, of Thailand, and of Burma. So it's an interesting and important thing for us to know, because as Pranay said, when the borders started coming in and when the Westphalian state finally came into existence, tribes that were living there for centuries suddenly got divided. Pranay spoke of the NSCN Kaplang group, and I had the honor of actually convincing Kaplang, not Kaplang. Kaplang had died, but his General Khango, to give up insurgency and to join the ceasefire with India. And when I asked Khango about what did he expect as the bottom line, Khango said only one thing. He's a general. I want to unify my people. My people live in Myanmar. My people live across the border, and the Koniaks are deeply divided. So this is the issue that many of the insurgent groups have with their camps in Myanmar, that there is a very strong population base across the border that actually supports them. So this is The migration that took place, the Austric-speaking Khasis migrated from Burma into Northeast. Somewhere in 1000 BC, a large number of Indian traders from Southeast Asia went to Burma around the 2nd century BC. As you're aware, India is the land of Buddha. So Buddhism, ex-India, spread to the northeast from the 1st century AD onwards. And Hyun the famous Chinese traveler who chronicled his traveled to Kamrup, that is today's Assam, from China in 630 AD. These are interesting snippets because what you see, this rainbow of different tribes that inhabit the Northeast, have actually been in this land for the last 20 centuries. And the Ahoms, who today inhabit most of Assam, arrived in Northeast India from Upper Burma, Yunnan, in the 13th century, followed by the Khamtis and the Kamangyangs. And Ayutthaya, and those of you who've been to Thailand know that the ancient capital of Thailand is called Ayutthaya, established in the 13th century AD and named after Ayodhya, under the influence of the Indian settlers who went to inhabit the land of Thailand. The Mughals, who controlled most of North and Central India, also tried to come towards the Northeast. And they were defeated in a number of battles. They invaded the Ahom kingdom from the 13th century onwards and captured the area till Guwahati only by the 16th century. So for 3 centuries, they were unsuccessful in their desire to capture or to bring the Northeast under their control. The Nagas, the Kukis, the Mizos, the Lushais came from Upper Burma and Yunnan. Assamese slaves were brought by Kachins into Wongkong Valley and settled there in the 17th century. And after the British annexation of Burma, which I will talk about later, in 1885, people from Northeast India settled in Burma and vice versa. So you can see that there's been a migration both ways. People have moved from India, moved towards the Northeast because those days there were no real borders. Borderlines were not the way they are today. But more importantly, people used to travel from one state to the other, taking with them their religion, taking with them their culture, establishing civilizations wherever they went. And that's how there is so much similarity between the northeast of India and the southeast of Asia. Now, in 1822, this is what Burma looked like. The Burmese Empire had, straddled today's Assam, right till Golpara, Darang, the Burmese Empire, as you can see in the map, Kachar, and present-day Manipur were all under Burma. But post the First Anglo-Burma War, the first war took place in 1824 to 26. The second war took place in 1852 to 53, and the third war took place in 1885. The British colonial power started the process of occupying Burma, and soon, by 1855, they had occupied the entire country of Burma. And Burma became a part of colonial India, which resulted in a large shift of population which went back towards Burma to work as indentured labor. So in both sides, these tribes that we have, these restive tribes that we have, who now occupy the land of Nagaland, the land of Mizoram, have actually moved in search of food, in search of water, in search of better land for the last 20 centuries. This is the way the British Empire occupied the complete area of Burma. Now, to give you an idea about perspective of what we are really looking at, this is today's map. You see the green line, actually the green part in this map represents Bangladesh, and the red represents Burma or Myanmar. And you see how the northeast is divided, actually linked to India through a tiny sliver of land 22 kilometers across, called the Siliguri corridor. And this will give you an idea as to why the northeast is so important to us. Because as you see, it occupies extremely strategic terrain, linked as it is to the southeast of Asia. The British influence started in 18 from the Burmese warriors, and slowly the British colonial power took over the entire northeast. So let me now quote Robert Kaplan, who wrote the book The Revenge of Geography. A good place to understand the present and to ask questions about the future is on the ground, traveling as slowly as possible. And I must apologize that 25 minutes will not be enough for me to try and explain to you the complexities of the Northeast, but I'll do my best. Okay, so I have shown you what the Northeast is like. Let me talk about their population. The major tribes of Arunachal have the Tangsa tribe, the Wancho tribe, the Nokte tribe, Chakmas, Tutsas, the Lishus, the Olos, and the Singphro. All these tribes have different languages, different cultures, maybe different gods in Arunachal, especially because Christianity hasn't moved that far. But in each of these issues, you will find that there is a difference between one tribe and the other. Assam has the Assamese, the Dimasas, the Bodos, the Bengalis, the Zemi Nagas, the Rongmi Nagas, the Kukis, the Mars, the Hankuls, the Khasis, and the Karbis. Once again, entirely different from each other. It's an important thing for us to know that you can travel 20, 30 kilometers and that area will be occupied by a totally different set of tribes, totally different languages, totally different problems, totally different issues, totally different cultures. And that's how it becomes so difficult. Governance is so difficult because you have to give representation to each of these tribes. Nagaland, as I said, I spoke of the Koniaks, the Ao, the Sema, the Lotha, the Yumchungas, the Angami, the Chakisans, are all important tribes. In fact, they often talk of Nagaland as the land of 16 major tribes. And there are a lot more Naga tribes, but these are the major tribes that inhabit the land of Nagaland. Manipur has, in the Manipur Valley, the Maitis. Tangkhuls are in the north, in the Ukhrul Valley, the hills, and all the hills around Manipur are actually inhabited by different tribes of Naga, the Tangkhuls, the Pomais, the Kukis, the Pangals. And Mizoram, of course, has the Lushai, the Chakma, the Mara, the Lai, the Ru, Hamar, and Palte. I must tell you that when I was the Director General of the Assam Rifles, and I used to go and meet the Chief Minister of Mizoram quite often, Mr. Lalthan Hawla. He told me, he says, General, 80% of our population has a relative Burma or Myanmar. And at that time, Aung San Suu Kyi was heading the government, and she had taken two Chins as her senior vice president. And he said that many of us are actually related to these two Chin vice presidents of Myanmar, because the sacred stone and the sacred village from where the Chin population started its movement is actually based in Myanmar. And for that, the Myanmaris, the Mizos, consider Burma a sacred land for themselves. And it is actually, it's a pilgrimage for them to go to from where the Mizo tribes actually emerged, and that is in Myanmar. The Tripuras, of course, have the Tripuris, the Riangs, the Bru, the Jamatyas, the Chakmas, the Nawatyas, the Kolai, and the Holams. And you will notice between the Tripuris and the Riangs and the Bru, the Tripuris are the people who inhabit the flatlands of Mizoram, of Tripura. The ones in the jungle or in the mountains of Tripura, you have the Riangs of the Bru and the Chakmas. So this difference between the plains people and the hill people is a problem not only in Tripura, it's a problem in Manipur, it's a problem in Mizoram, it's a problem in Meghalaya, and of course a problem in Assam. That at each point there's a different set of issues that beset the Northeast. And finally, the Meghalaya, the Garos, the Khasi, the Hajong, Prayar, and Tiwa. Extremely important for us to understand how these tribes actually dominate, which tribe dominates which part of the Northeast, and why the Northeast remains turbulent. There is, as I said, 10.6 kilometers of national borders, 35% of the borders within the Northeast, with China actually controlling 1,325 kilometers with China. With Bangladesh, it is 1,880. With Nepal, it's 85. With Bhutan, it's 1,460. And with Myanmar, it's 1,643 kilometers. They will, as you see towards the north of this slide, you will find 136 kilometers of this area is undemarcated. That's because from BP 186 till the tri-junction, Myanmar has not demarcated this land because they told us that there's a tri-junction with China and that we should sort out this border with China before they can finalize 136 kilometers of this undemarcated territory. This tells you and shows you the border with Myanmar or Burma. So the states that share this border are the states of Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, and north of it, Arunachal Pradesh. And this is the line where most of the insurgency happened. This line is the villages on both sides are, the line is demarcated. The villages on both sides of this border, 16 kilometers of this border, share a very unique way of living. We have something called the free move regime between these two our two countries. That means villages between 16 kilometers of the border are free to move and trade with each other without a visa, without being stopped at any point of this. But it's only this 16-kilometer free move regime exists only with Myanmar and not with Bangladesh or with any other country. And this is a challenge for any border guard force that has to defend this country, especially when it knows that these 16 kilometers of the people living in the villages of 16 kilometers of both sides are allowed to come and go, carrying headloads for trade, and have often intermarried and often have share a very, very close relationship with each other. I've spoken about the ancient history. Khasis were the earliest to move into the region. They are Austro-Asiatic, Tibeto-Burmese, and Indo-Aryan were the last to arrive. This is also a part of the ancient trade route to China. And this is also called the ancient kingdom of Kamrup. So let me just talk about the Ahom kingdom, the princely states of Manipur and Tripura, and which is inhabited by a number of tribes and sub-tribes. And this is the area which they occupied. Across you will find the Ahom kingdom, which actually occupied present-day Myanmar, present-day Manipur, present-day almost part of Nagaland and Tripura. But what really creates the problem? Because this is important for us to understand, and why is the Northeast in this turbulence, is that 1947 merger of a large part of the Bengal province took place into Assam. So till 1947, this was all known as the Bengal province, which is why you will find a fair number of Bengalis who live in Assam. During partition, when Bangladesh was created, you found a slow migration from Bangladesh of Bengali Muslim Hindus who came into Assam and who occupied these areas of Assam. And before March 24th, 1971, just before the massacre or just after the massacre in East Pakistan, there was a major influx of Bengali Hindus into Assam and Tripura, which is why the problem of Ulfa started. In the 1970s, because Bangladesh was an emerging country and its economy was in terrible shape, we had a large number of Bangladeshi Muslims who started immigrating into Assam, into Tripura to earn their living. And because of this immigration, the agitation started in 1979 over this illegal migration. And this put a tremendous strain on the people of Assam and threatened to alter the demography and subsequently an anti-foreigner agitation of 1980 started with the Assamese Bodo tensions and the anger in the Assamese population. South Assam became a battlefield, a presence of all the tribes of the northeast region. Insurgency started to the clash of interests and territorial claims. It's a difficult issue. I'm just trying to tell you that because of this large number of changes that took place in the influx of people who came in search of jobs or came in search of food or to make a living, the overlapping culture of the people who actually inhabited this land over the last 20 centuries, they started protesting because they found that in their lands, this demography was being changed. Their culture was being changed. And the smaller you are as a tribe, the more dearly you hold on to your language. And which is the reason why this agitation started. Let's talk of Arunachal Pradesh. The sixth Dalai Lama, I wonder if you know, was from Tawang. There's a large number of Buddhist population which is connected to Lhasa with the Buddhist monks, sharing a connection with the white hat and yellow hat monks of Tibet. In 1914, the McMahon line demarcated in areas into British India, and subsequently post-independence, the Arunachali tribes actually remained autonomous. In 1954, India created the NEFA, and in 59, we had the Dalai Lama moving to India. In 1972, we renamed this part of the land to Arunachal Pradesh, and by 1987, it was. This is the map of the McMahon line. It's extremely important for us to understand that this line still remains disputed with China, and because of this dispute, we have a major problem. So let's talk of Nagaland, and this is the second reason why the Northeast remains forever in turbulence. By 1927-28, there was the Naga that created what was known as the Naga Club. And after that, they kept telling the British that when you go and don't leave us, we don't belong to India. And because of this issue, there have been continuous problems because the Nagas have never felt that this land belonged to India. They have never been ruled directly by any Indian kingdom, and they probably felt that they wanted to be independent. And this is another reason, the major reason, why the Naga insurgent groups exist and why they continue to ask for sovereignty. Manipur, the king of Manipur asked the British to help against the Burmese invaders in 1824, but soon Manipur was taken over and so did Burma, became a British protectorate. And Manipur, the princely state, came under British rule in 1891. But in 1949, the Maharaja of Manipur signed the Treaty of Accession. The merger with India took place in 1949. So some of the mighty insurgent groups talk of the Maharaja being forced to accede to India, and therefore feel that that was an illegal accession, and therefore continue to fight for complete independence of Manipur. Now, Mizoram, of course, is a success story. There were 7 major tribes. It's a remote area. It's also, the Chittagong Hill tribes, and there were a large number of punitive British military annexations that took place in the Lushai Hills. They were named in 1947 as the Lushai Hills. After 1959, when the Motam famine, Motam took place because, every 14 years, the bamboos grow a particular flower because of which the rats come out to eat the bamboo. And because of that, there was large-scale hunger in Mizoram, which was probably not handled well enough by the Assamese, by the Assam government, because of which they started the Motam Mizo National Front, or the Mizo National Famine Front, which finally led to the creation of the Mizo National Front, which led the insurgency against the government of India. Finally, by 1986, we had signed a peace deal with Mizoram. This peace deal holds, and it is taken as a shining example of the ability of India and the Indian Constitution to bring different states into its ambit. Mizoram remains peaceful, and it is indeed wonderful to see them and how disciplined the people really are. Tripura, of course, has gone through its problems. It's the third smallest state. It merged with the Union of India in 1949, but it has suffered due to the large influx of Bangladeshis from 1970 onwards. I spoke of the massacres that took place in East Pakistan, because of which a large number of Bengali Hindus had to come into India, and they caused a major population inversion. Tripura is now peaceful. I have fought the NLFT in 1989 onwards, the National Liberation Front of Tripura. And finally, Tripura too remains peaceful and hopefully will remain peaceful. Though there seems to be a problem emerging between the people who occupy the plain areas of Tripura and the hills of Tripura. But it's a very beautiful place. AVM Sinha was talking about the geography of the Northeast. Let's just look at this map. The map tells you the greater Himalayas. Then the only piece of flat land is actually the Brahmaputra Valley. You can see it very clearly as it goes across, into Bangladesh, and it drains into Bangladesh. You have the Barak Valley, and rest of the entire area is straddled by hills, low hills, but hills all the same, which has a potential of creating a problem when you are trying to govern this land. Extremely difficult place to govern because of the low hills, lack of connectivity, and the lack of all kinds of situations. And that's a major problem because there is no education facilities there. Communication and roads are in terrible shape, and because of which people are protesting. So, what is we talk of the geopolitical relevance of this region? It's landlocked. It has rugged terrain. There's a psychological distance that nurtures insurgent ideologies. But let's just see what this means actually. That is, if you were to travel from Calcutta or Kolkata to Agartala and go through your own country, go through India, you would travel 1526 kilometers before you reached Agartala, because you would have to go through Bangladesh. But if you took and drew a direct line and traveled through Bangladesh, you had to move only 448. This map shows you how important Bangladesh is for India and why Bangladesh must always remain a friend of India's. Because without Bangladesh, for us to suitably govern the northeast of India becomes very, very difficult. This shows you in great detail how this problem has occurred and how many problems Bangladesh can really create for India. Now, the insurgency. The center of gravity of any insurgency are the people of that place. And in the northeast, the issues that the genesis and evolution of the insurgency came because of these reasons: economic deprivation, communal diversity, a clash of values, regional differences, intolerance, fundamentalism, religious extremism, economic disparity, separatist political aspirations, external support, adversaries, and corruption and lack of recognition. This became the reason various states, Assam has the NSCN, has the Zeliang United Front, the Hamar People's Front, it has the Ulfa, Manipur has its own set of insurgent groups, Nagaland has their set, Tripura has their set, Mizoram has their set, Arunachal once again has theirs. And the common abetting factors are historical legacy, inaccessibility, lack of development, British policies, demographic aggression. So all these issues create a major problem for us. I've listed out the list of amount of insurgents occupying, but that can come in the questions. And I'm more than willing to answer any question that you may like to know. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Thanks indeed for this very, very enlightening talk on the Northeast. We know the reason of turbulence now, the different geographical location, the tribes, the culture. Sir, we have been able to resolve some of very, very long pending issues like you have mentioned of Mizoram, similarly of somewhat of Bodoland we have resolved, Karbi Anglong we have resolved, similarly the others. And all this thing which I am saying, sir, it has been resolved because of invocation of 6th schedule of the Constitution, creating autonomic district region.
Yes.
So why we can't create more such autonomous district region? Because today, for the viewers, there are almost 10 autonomous district region in the northeast, 2 in Ladakh and 1 in West Bengal, that is Gorkhaland. And I believe, sir, this can be the role model for all the tribes. Can't we create more? Can't we go for giving this tribe? Because these tribes basically requires continuity, requires contiguous accessibility, connectivity, and some sort of their pride has to be recognized. What you have shown in that big slide, the last slide, sir. So, what is your take on this, sir? And how do you convey to government what is the how we resolve this conundrum, sir?
See, Pranay, there's a difference between the autonomous hill councils of Assam, of the state of Assam, where the Bodos live, where the Ulfa agitation had started. And if you know that the Ulfa agitation started, it rested on one of the major issues that the Ulfa agitation ended was because we agreed to identify the foreigners who had entered the state of Assam. And the date of identification of those foreigners was taken as the 24th of March 1971. That was in the Ulfa Accord, the accord with Ulfa and the government of India. The date of foreigners, identification of the date of foreigners was taken as the 24th of March 1971. That means anyone who came after that was not to be considered a member of the state and would not be given voting rights. Identification of the date and subsequently the people had to be identified and weeded out. That part, Pranay, never took place. Now, of course, in the latest Citizenship Amendment Act, the date has been changed from 24th of March 1971 to the 31st of December 2014. This has caused a lot of dissonance in the society because they expected and they thought that this was a sovereign agreement and the date should never have been changed, which is the reason why the CAA has created this kind of problem in the Northeast. That's the first issue. The second issue is the state of Nagaland or the Naga insurgent tribes, the NSCN IM, the NSCN Kaplang or now the Congo group, the NSCN Reformation group and the NSCN Khitovi Nikpao group, KN, were agitating for a different kind of Nagaland. Their agitation is that firstly, we don't believe in the Constitution of India. Secondly, we're not a part of India. And the initial agitation that started in 1956, Pranay, was based on the Naga asserting that as per the Hyderabad Agreement which took place with them in 1946, where they were given 10 years to accept their being a part of India, which of course India abrogated the Hyderabad Agreement. They said that we should have gone back to the Hyderabad Agreement. This was the reason why we agreed to be a part of it. When you go into history, Pranay, and you start studying the reasons, we feel that maybe we may not have been fully truthful with the people. So that's one issue. Freedom is out of question. But since I was the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group and spent a long time talking to the leaders of the Naga insurgent group, what came out from them was that, sir, we're willing to accept, as per the framework agreement, we're willing to accept the sovereignty of India, but allow us to have a flag and allow us to have our own constitution. And this is something that the NSC and IM is refusing to back down from, what they call their core areas. The third core areas was, as I spoke about in the beginning, when I spoke to Congo, about the reunification of all Naga tribes or reunification of the people. The NSCN IM's third issue, which they have now backed down, was the creation of what they called Nagalim or Greater Nagaland, which is the states where the Nagas live in South Assam, in Arunachal Pradesh, in Manipur, and in Nagaland were to be changed and brought about and made into one single state, which is the Greater Nagaland or Nagaland. So what we need to do is, Pranay, we need to talk to them further about this. We need to get them to agree to our request that we accept anything, but you must accept the Indian Constitution and you must accept the sovereignty of India. We have shown in the past that the Indian Constitution is flexible enough to accept the needs of the minorities. And I feel that we need to show the same flexibility now so that we can get lasting peace in this very difficult, very beautiful land. People need peace, India needs peace. And we can only gain if peace comes.
Sir, extending this question and a very, very outrageous, my suggestion will be that since Nagalim, if you want to form a Nagalim, you have to take some part of Myanmar. If you want to fulfill the Meiteis' ambition, you have to go to Myanmar. If you have to fulfill the wishes of Mizos, you have to go to Myanmar. So why not annex Myanmar?
It's a little difficult at the keeping the present situation there. The Mizos are happy with Mizoram. There's no problem with that. In this recent crackdown in Myanmar by the Myanmar army, we tried to stop the Mizos from allowing refugees into Mizoram. But the Mizos said no, these are our relatives and our own people, and we will permit them. So not many people even, I don't think we know how many Mizos from across, or the Chin tribe people from across, who actually entered Mizoram and are being given sanctuary by the people of Mizoram. But Mizoram is quiet. We don't have a problem in Mizoram. The problem is with the Naga insurgent tribes, and the problem is with the Meiteis and the hill people of Manipur. While the creation of a hill council or two hill councils is very much on the table, but the acceptance of whether we should give them a flag and a constitution is a matter of policy. After all, as per Article 371A, which deals with the state of Nagaland, 371B deals with Mizoram, C with Manipur, D with Tripura. Each of them, the primacy of tribal laws and tribal lands has been given primacy. So we have agreed to, I would say, 90% of the issues. We need to go another 10% ahead. And I'm certain that we will have the wisdom and the sagacity to finally get these tribes on board and have lasting peace in the north.
So my final question will be, in fact, Sumitra ji has raised this, about the Rohingyas, the demographic change, and why this CA somehow has the government of India developed a cold feet in implementing this CA in Assam, which has been granted by the Supreme Court of India. Sir, over to you, sir.
I explained to you, Pranay. The problem is in the identification of foreigners. We had a sovereign agreement with the ULFA when we signed it, and Assam became quiet and peaceful about the date of the foreigners. Identification of the foreigners from 24th of March 1971. To then amend it to say that we will accept till the 31st of December 2014 seems a major hurdle to jump, which is why the political leaders in the Northeast have recommended to the government that please go slow on this. Our people are not yet ready to accept, which is why this particular thing has happened. Pranay, when you're dealing, and this is my personal view, is when you're dealing with the very vulnerable smaller community, Pranay, you have to go much slower. You have to take them into account, because if you don't, you won't have peace. And we've seen that this insurgency has continued from 1956. So it can continue another 30 years, it doesn't matter. You will keep a very important region of India poor, unconnected, lack of governance, and you will have to put a large military force to keep it at peace. And as you yourself said when you were speaking, China will continue to fish in troubled water. If your waters are muddy and troubled, China will fish there. So to prevent all this, you need to now create a system by which we can close this deal and get peace there.
Thank you, sir. And before I call upon Dr. Deepa Prakash, may I request the force behind our think tank, Sri Vinit Goenka ji, an ardent champion of data sovereignty, who has authored this book, which is lying behind me, former member of Task Force IT Ministry, present member of Council of Center for Railway Rights, sir, and spokesperson of BJP. Vinit ji, over to you.
Thank you, Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan. And when I was reading about you, like the PVSM, AVSM, SM, and I think all the accolades which could come, and it's been a fantastic 1 hour to listen to you, sir. Coming from Assam Rifles, such a long, I think it is one of the oldest part of the Indian Army, 1835 or something like that, if I'm not wrong, and with a very big presence of more than 45 plus battalions or 46.
46 battalions, yeah.
46 battalions and somewhere around 65,000 plus men been commanded by you. It's a fantastic game. Sir, I also had 2 stints there. I was part of the SEAL project and I was part of the task force. so had to visit certain areas like Ghaspani, Aflong, Lakhapiri, Tanzing, Dimapur, Naugam, Shivsagar, Tokog, and Likimpur. In fact, the base was correct. So I could understand the challenges which are there and the beauty of that place. So every 50 kilometers you travel, the language changes, the food habit changes, people's aspiration changes. So in these days where the war are not fought directly, where there are the wars are being fought at a low conflict, sometimes non-kinetic, sometimes kinetic. They have been brewed on your fault lines, and in the northeast there are a lot of fault lines. It may be religious fault lines, ethnicities, languages, food habits, maybe demographics like those. And operating out of that area, we all are proud of you, sir, and the men who serve there. And I'm sure the small problems which we all face will dissolve and solve as we grow together, and the fruits of democracy are reaching there. I'm very happy that that part of the country has received a lot of electric connection, gas connections, which are small essentials. The medical help, maybe the IIT is going in the northeast, the other facilities of the education is going there, will also resolve a lot of issues which are there. Sir, I would like to thank you before there is a formal vote of thanks been proposed by Dr. Deepa for coming and explaining it so nicely. I've had a privilege to meet and greet and learn from a lot of generals. Of course, one of them, he is here as an audience, Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, who's been a figure like father to us, and many other comrades who have been, I can see a lot of them. I can see Major Dev Bhatt, Captain Kranti, Major Kapil, Wing Commander Shetty, a lot of them been here. The gathering is August. But sir, let me convey to you, your presentation hit the right note. It was heard by ears, impacted the brain, and also touched the heart to us, sir. I would like to thank you first before the formal vote of thanks comes. Over to Dr. Deepa.
Thank you very much. At the outset, we thank the General who has been awarded with illustrious presidential awards that include the Param Vishisht Seva Medal, the Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, the Yuddha Seva Medal, among others, for his distinguished service, outstanding leadership and gallantry in both operations and distinguished service both in India and abroad. It was indeed an eye-opening session for a majority of us to understand the very complex issues of the Northeast. General Shokin's vast experience at apex level in both the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Home in fields of defense, counter-insurgency, counter-terrorism and border guarding and human resource management made this topic of today not just very informative but riveting. The manner in which General handled various questions on the subject speaks volumes of his vast experience in the conduct of counter-terrorist operations, both in the Northeast as well as at the tactical and strategic level. On behalf of CKS, my sincere gratitude to General Shokin Chauhan sir for delivering such an illuminating talk. I also thank Sumitra Goenka ji, AVM Pranay Sinha, for introduction and moderation of the session. I also thank Dr. Nagratna and Paresh for their back and support. My special thanks to Vinit Goenka ji, our mentor and guide. And in the last but not least, thanks to all our viewers on the various social media for tuning in and encouraging us to host this program. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, and thank you very much.